Well, we have been sent a case from a recent graduate, a recent attendee of the Sirona Advanced User Training that's provided to all new purchasers of the cone beam systems, either Galileos or XG3D, in this case an XG3D. And we want to evaluate our plan on tooth number 5, and more than happy to do that. So the first thing I noticed in looking at this scan is right here, again, we can't reliably use cone beam for detecting decay, but I'm a little concerned about the area on tooth number 4 and tooth number 3. So there was no finding there mentioned here. So what I would consider doing is adding a finding, uh, and I would put like decay question mark, possible area of decay on number 3 and number 4. And what this will do is it'll ensure that I know that you recognize that, or if so, you were sending this to somebody else, that that area was recognized. And again, I'm certain that it was, but we just want to make sure that that is put in there. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that finding and go ahead and focus on our implant. And in this particular case, we've implanted a Straumann bone level. Looks like for an immediate placement in site number 5. So let's take a closer look and we'll go through our checklist here. So first thing I'm going to look at is our mesiodistal positioning, and the good news about immediate placement is oftentimes we can use the root as our guide, and here we can see again, if we were to take a closer look at this, what we're able to see is the outline of the adjacent root, the outline of, that was terrible, the outline of the canine, like so. And we can see if anything we're slightly closer here, we have a little bit of wiggle room here, so maybe we can go over to the distal hair. And in looking at this also, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this plan. That's the second time in a row I forgot to do that. Also, if we take a look at this particular plan, we can notice that we are, I mean, again, I'm being nitpicky here, just a hair off. So that will also happen to correspond to the necessary movement to get it more centered mesiodistally. Again, assuming that's where we want it to be, and in this case we do. Next, we're going to take a look at buccolingually. And again, if we look at this particular situation and using our drawing tools here, I'm able to outline what looks like to be the bone level here, just like so. And we can see that we have a little bit more space on the buccal right here, but not so much here. So I wouldn't necessarily move this more buccal, but I would point out that it looks like we're definitely supracrestal, above the bone. And in immediate placement, we definitely do not want to be above the bone there. So that brings us to our next point, which is the bone level. And I would say that this implant definitely needs to be taken down probably to about this level right here. And that's probably more of an adequate or appropriate line. And you can see right there a little bit better where the bone goes to. So right here is our bone line, right there. So we're about right there, and we should expect a little bit of bone loss from the actual extraction. So I think this is probably a more appropriate or adequate position for the bone placement. The next thing that we're going to look at is vital structures. We're away from our roots, we're away from our sinus, so this is certainly more than adequate length. Next we're going to look at is our occlusal table, and here we can go to the axial view. And right away, one of the things I'm noticing, and what I would like to do here, is kind of share my technique for this, is what I typically do in a case like this is, what I will do is just mentally outline lines like so, and lines like so, the mesial of the adjacent tooth, the distal of that tooth, and if we were to draw a line, we would say that we want our circle coming out right about here, and in our case we have our circle coming out right there. So we are definitely more buccal than we need to be. And this can also be noticed by coming here through the axial view, and we can see that we're coming out the buccal cusp, and we can also see that right here that we're coming out the buccal cusp. Now, this may not be a bad thing. is just not ideal. So, in an ideal world, we want to have the forces directed along the central groove. So in an ideal world, we want the forces to come out like so. Now, obviously, this presents a set of issues for us, but I just want to get us an idea of what I'm thinking and why I'm thinking it. So in this particular case, I would want to see the implant coming through about right here, like so. And what this also allows me to do is know that I can fabricate a screw retained restoration. Now, what I do become concerned about is the thinness of this cortical plate right here. So I might drop down to a 12 millimeter implant here. Um, again, primary stability may become an issue, but luckily we have some interseptal bone here. We may be able to engage right here. I'm not overly familiar with the Straumann implant, so I'm not certainly the best one to tell you that it will have a lot of bite or grab there. But it is something to be aware of. Whereas if we did go with this implant, we may need to flap and add a little bit of bone here for some area where the implant may stick through. So I would go down to a shorter implant and have a more ideal support of this. Now the last thing we want to take a look at is our occlusal plane. And what we can see here in looking at this, what I'm looking at is we have a line kind of like so. And in an ideal world, we would like this line to be more straight across, giving support to that tooth. So this would require some tilting and moving, probably more along the lines of something like this. And in doing that, what we do notice, and very common in this particular area, is that we come into problems with these teeth. So this is an area where we know we're going to have to make a little bit of a compromise on the occlusal plane. But again, we're more than happy to do that in this particular case for a single tooth like so. So the last thing we want to do is check our guide sleeves, and here we can see that we are barely making clearance. We can take a closer look here and see we have more space here, so we could probably tilt this just like so and create the more space we need. Now it's coming through pretty much the center of the tooth. So now we're ready to do our last check, which is at 360. And here we use the slider. We kind of go through the tooth, and it's pretty straightforward. The bigger issue here is going to be, do we have enough bone to create stability? And that has a lot to do with the implant being used here. And unfortunately, I can't comment on that as I don't have any direct experience with the Straumann implant. So hopefully this has been helpful, and you can see the value in being able to have someone take a look at these plans. And we're here to help in any way possible. Thank you very much.